Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of emotional hygiene sessions that we at the Psych Life have organized for all of you. And let me introduce myself first. I am Kirti Garg, a mental health advocate, a psychologist in training, and the founder of Psych Life. And I'm very excited to be doing today's session with Ms. Karima Sharma, who is a counseling psychologist and also the co founder of Seeking My Mind. I'm sure some of you were there with us even yesterday, and since the response was so overwhelming, it was not easy to accommodate everyone on Zoom. So we decided to why not stream it live on YouTube. If you all can hear me and if you're excited for today's session, do drop it in the comment section so that I can see that there are people interacting, and it kind of boosts us more. So I did an introduction of Garima yesterday also, but some of you might be new here. So let me introduce the guest speaker again to all of you. She is a counseling psychologist, and she is also the founder of Seeking My Mind. Through this platform, she aims to educate people about mental health and psychoeducation. She has a keen interest in clinical psychology and wishes to work in hospitals and clinics in the near future. Today we have with us Garima here to share her knowledge and expertise on today's topic. I think the best title that we could think of. Could it be more stressful? To all the Friends fan here, could you relate to it? Because this ongoing pandemic is no doubt stressful for a lot of us. I'm sure for all of us. So Garima over here is going to share her knowledge, is going to share so many tips, and I'm sure it's going to be an amazing session. Keep interacting with us through the comment section, and I also you can keep sending in your questions. We will be taking them in the end. Welcome Garima to today's session.
Thank you so much, Kirti. Thank you so much. Yesterday was a lovely session, and I'm so looking forward to this one. I hope the audience, the participants, can interact through the chat box because today is going to be more of an interactive session where we can talk about our feelings and emotions, right? So let's hope the audience can do that and be participative, and we'll start very soon. I just want to add one thing that right before the session, we switch off the registration forms. That is because all the participants, till the time we are switching it off, they can be incorporated in the groups. So if participants keep registering, then we won't be able to add them in the group, and we won't be able to provide the links for the sessions. So it's a request to everyone out there. If you want to, ask someone, if you want someone to attend these sessions, ask them to do that after this session. Okay, they can register after the session. We will switch on the setting, and then we'll add them in the groups and provide with the links.
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing the screen, which has the PPT for today's session. And whenever Garima finds it's comfortable and the right time, she can begin with the session.
All right, so I'm going to start now. And if it gets a little, disorganized or you are facing problems, then convey your messages through the chat box. Since we are not very accustomed with this setting, we are going to try our best to, deliver the best that we can. So, starting with the second session today, which is about stress and negative emotions and all of that, all of those sort of uncomfortable feelings and emotions that we go through in our day-to-day lives. We are going to be talking about that. We are going to be talking about the techniques, how to take care of that, and how to deal with them on a day-to-day basis. So this is something that is of utmost importance today's scenario. Also, I think a lot of us can relate with being held by the negative emotions and being not being able to be so productive because we are get setting back because of these emotions, these uncomfortable things that are going on inside our mind. So we can start now. All right. Kirti, please move to the next slide. Kirti, can you hear me?
Yes, Garima, I can hear you. It's actually since it's a live stream, so the whatever I share tends to reach you 20 seconds later, and similarly to the audience. So I hope everybody here knows that, and I'll start sharing the screen again.
All right. Okay, so this is going to be a little slow motion. And all right, let's get beginning. Kirti, please switch it to the full size mode. All right, it's uh, do a slideshow, do something, do a slideshow.
Actually, the slideshow isn't working. I've tried that. I think we can zoom in and then we can begin.
Okay, all right, all right. I hope I'm audible and let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is something that we have talked about in the previous session yesterday. We have talked about mindset, we have talked a little about anxiety, stress, thinking patterns, and definitely we have talked about mindfulness. So I'm going to start with a little activity. If you can hear me clearly, just follow me with it. So just a little activity so that we all get, a little comfortable over here. So everyone who can listen to me, all the participants, please close your eyes for a moment. Now, I want you to just focus on what I'm saying and imagine what I'm asking you to. Okay. Think about all the stressors around you, the pandemic. Think about relationships that are not so good, not so comfortable, not very positive. Think about your past life and your experiences that have been negative and not so, happy ones. Imagine yourself in the middle of a bubble, and in that whole bubble, you can see thorns, kante. You can see people that you don't have good relations with, toxic people there. You can see you can see your thoughts over there. You can see your very uncomfortable thought bubbles over there. Imagine the most uncomfortable feeling that you have experienced till now. Think about the traumatic experiences that you might have gone through. Think about the work stress, the stress that your academics and your work involves. Think about all of the people who are who are stressed in the pandemic, who are not being able to deal with it effectively. Think about everything that's going wrong in your life and everything that was going wrong in your life. If you can imagine that yourself in that bubble, which is full of negativity, negative emotions, negative experiences, negative thoughts, negative feelings, I just want you to imagine you taking a pin and you are bursting that bubble. Now that you have bursted that bubble, it's all gone. Keep your eyes closed. The negativity is gone. Toxic people are gone. The, the negative experiences are gone. The feelings are gone. Your trauma, it's happened, it's gone. Your negative thoughts, everything that is happening around the negative aspects of the pandemic, stressors are gone. Academic stressor is gone. Everything's gone now. Take a deep breath. Take a long deep breath in and exhale it out. Open your eyes and focus on your screen where the webinar is happening and just write down in the chat box your feelings when you opened your eyes. How did you feel? Tell me all the experiences, all the feeling that you had when you bursted that bubble and you let everything go. How did you feel? Felt clear, empty, good, relax and empty, nothing. Okay. Felt fresh. Okay. Felt very nice. All right. Felt warm. Okay. Now, if you observe that this activity, which we did just now, this is something that I have quoted as an activity, but this is an exercise that we keep doing on a daily basis. We are just providing our mind with all the information, all the negativity, all the negative emotions and everything from the past, from the future. We are imagining things and our mind cannot relax. As soon as I asked you to burst that bubble and get back to the present moment and just inhale and exhale, to take a deep breath, you were able to feel fresh, you were able to relax, you felt calm. This is something that we need to focus on. Our mind has a tendency to run, okay, in different directions. We need to control it and we need to keep bringing it back in the present moment. Everything that we were imagining was there in our minds, but it was not there in the present moment. The present moment is here, right now, and you are attending this webinar and you are feeling relaxed and fresh for now. This is the present moment. Let everything else go. This is a little activity that I did on mindfulness. This is how we do mindfulness. We focus, we drive our focus from all the negative energies and everything that is going on in our minds to the present moment. For for a few minutes, your mind was super active, and then for a few seconds, it got back into the relaxing mode. This is how we do mindfulness. Coming to the next slide, someone said, will I ever be able to overcome my fear and anxiety? This thought came in. This is what happens with us every day. This is what we call anxiety. This very thought, of fear, this thought which is interrupting with our state of calmness, this thought that this might happen, or will I ever be able to do that? Will I be able to calm my anxiety? Will I be able to feel okay? Will I be able to relax? All these are anxious thoughts. And this is what we do. We take our attention away from our anxious thoughts and we bring it to the present moment. We just focus on what is right here in front of us and what is in our control. Talking about anxiety, I'm going to be taking the whole session on this very aspect, and hopefully you will get to learn a lot, many things about psychology as well as anxiety, and you might be able to help yourself in ways that I'm going to teach you today. So, talking about stress and anxiety, a lot of people here are not from the background of psychology, so you don't know what is the difference between stress and anxiety. A lot of us have no idea what is the difference between stress and anxiety. So I'm going to give you one brief note on that, how to differentiate between the two. Stress is something, it's a trigger, it is happening in the present moment. Okay, so if there are technical difficulties, this I'm getting stressed about it because they are happening in the present moment and they are making me feel stressed. These are the negative emotions that I'm feeling when that stimulus or when that experience is present in the present moment. That is when we call it stress. But when we are thinking about the future possibilities, things that have not happened, when we are thinking about, we are imagining scenarios, we are imagining, uncomfortable scenarios, situations, and uncomfortable feelings that have not happened till now and which don't exist in the present moment. That is what we term as anxiety. Thinking about the future, constant worry about the future is known as anxiety, and worry about the present moment is known as stress. So, this is the basic difference between the two. And as we have known that anxiety is not such a good thing, it is counted as a negative experience and not such a healthy emotion. I'm going to tell you something over here. We all need stress and anxiety to work, to be able to gain something in our lives, to be able to have our food on have the food on our plates, to be able to live each day. We need these two things, stress and anxiety. And if stress and anxiety are absent from our life, we won't be able to do anything because we won't worry about anything and we won't be motivated to do anything. We won't be able to solve our own problems and we won't be able to come out of them. The stress and anxiety are very much needed in our day-to-day lives, but what is not needed is over stress. Okay, when there's too much stress, maybe when there's too much anxiety that it becomes it takes a role of chronic anxiety. That is something that we don't want because excess of anything is bad, right? So it hampers our mental health condition and it creates a lot many other problems. So we are going to focus today on overstressing and anxiety, which is mostly chronic. Anxiety can look like overthinking, overstressing, overgeneralizing, overanalyzing, overdoubting. Please change to the next slide, Kirti. Anxiety, if you may observe, if you think that you have anxiety, if you have observed yourself, you may be able to observe that anxiety is about everything that is happening in an overstate, like excess of thinking, excess of worrying, excess of generalizing. Overgeneralizing means that we are, we have this perception that the things are more magnified than they are in reality. So we have that approach towards thinking. And this is what anxiety do to us. These are the psychological symptoms where we can understand that we might be having anxiety in our day-to-day lives. Coming to the next slide. So here is a diagram, and I'm just gonna ask Kirti to view the full diagram. Okay, now it's visible, right? Right. Kirti, try to keep this only the font for this. Okay, this is gonna work fine. So we have, this is the cycle of anxiety or negative emotions, we can say in general. What happens is that it starts with a trigger. This trigger can be real, as in it is happening in the present moment. If someone says anything to me that is not so comfortable, that is not a very comfortable thought or a comfortable statement, like if someone criticizes me for something, that is a trigger. Okay, this is a physical trigger. This is something that has actually happened. A trigger can also be perceived as in a person is not saying anything against me or not criticizing me, but I'm perceiving the person to be, criticizing me. The trigger can also be imagined. For example, like I've just said, and we think about our future. We are obsessed with thinking about our future, worrying about it, and everything. So these are basically triggers that we have. Triggers, which can be real or perceived, they lead to emotions. Emotions are feeling attacked and we feel threatened. So when these trigger hit us, when we are starting to observe that there's something going on, our mind tends to overthink about it. The mental processes have started right away, and then we start feeling the emotions, the second stages of emotions. So when then we start feeling emotions, we get sad or we get angry or we get overwhelmed, and these are the emotions where they are taking us one stage from one stage to another. It's like a process that keeps going. So the third stage of this is arousal. So as soon as the trigger is involved and we are aware about what we are feeling, there are emotions now that we have felt, uncomfortable ones, and now this is leading to arousal. Arousal means body arousal. So our heartbeat is fast. Our heartbeat becomes fast, and we start to sweat, or maybe our muscles become tense. This is the bodily response to anxiety. This is how our body reacts to anxiety. The third stage has been met, that our body is now aroused and we are feeling all, we can actually feel everything, every sensation in our body getting stronger and more vigilant. Now, the fourth one is fight or flight response is activated. Brain, just a second. Brain and body prepares for reaction. So now when our emotions are activated and our body is activated, that is when our body is trying to prepare us for the fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode is known as a stress response. So when there's too much of stress, what humans, this is a human tendency that we get into the trap of fight or flight mode. We either, when we see a trigger, when we see something threatening coming, we either try to fight it or we try to flight, as in try to run away from it. And this is a very natural stress response of humans. Then the next stage that is covered is behavior. So as soon as my mind is activated, my emotions are activated, I have seen that there is a negative trigger out there, and my body is aroused, and my fight and flight mode has been activated. This is where the last stage comes into play, that is behavior. So if this was the situation, if a person had criticized me, I started, I took that as a trigger, and then my emotions, they were triggered, and then my body got aroused, then my fight and flight mode was activated, and the last is that behavior. I will try to behave in a way that is not very comfortable and that is going to lead to negative consequences. Like I might indulge in violence or I might indulge in, aggression. And this is the whole cycle of anxiety. This keeps happening. It takes a toll from one stage to another, and this is how it gains authority on our mind as well as on our body. Coming to the factors of stress and anxiety. So, why do we develop stress and anxiety, and how do we develop them? Is it like I started developing anxiety like a year ago, or was it I did I have it like from since childhood? What were the factors involved to for me to have that anxiety? So, here are the factors that are involved in anxiety. First of all, a lot of us go through financial problems. Even if we are not going through financial problems, we are always wanting to earn more, have more financial resources, and grow in life. This is a stressor that is very constant, and it impacts our mind in a way that it causes anxiety. Second is health problems. So if I'm having health problem, or if my family member, if a close relative is having health problems, that is going to trigger my mind. That is going to lead to a negative cycle of anxiety, starting from the thoughts of it. Parenting style. So how I have been brought up. Was there like a strict parenting? There was a strict parenting pattern, or was there like a happy and supportive parenting? So when there is authoritarian or which is called strict parenting, in that type of parenting styles, children tend to grow up and develop anxiety. This is something that we have basically seen in most of the cases, that parenting has a huge role to play on the mental health of the child. When the child grows up, they realize that they are starting to have problems. They are starting to have stress, or maybe some other psychological problems like anxiety or maybe depression. And this is something that we directly relate to with parenting style. So the fourth factor is work stress. Work causes a lot of stress, even if the individual is a homemaker. Even the home stress, the daily chore stress is enough to be causing anxiety. And the next one is biology and genes. So if there is a pattern in your family, or in your there's a history of illness in your family. So for example, if any of the generations have gone through anxiety, there's a possibility that you might also go through anxiety, because the genes have them, right? Our biology has them. If my grandparents had anxiety, my parents had anxiety, so there are chances that I might as well have anxiety. It's like a 50-50% chance, but there's a risk over there. Now we have relationships. Relationships tend to make us anxious. They make us vulnerable. They make us, relationships is not all about happiness and love. It comes with all the costs that it involves. So when we are meeting the cost, that is where relationships are affecting our mental health and causing a lot of anxiety. Unstable life patterns refers to if your life has been unstable in any way. So if there was financial instability, or there was mental instability, or there was instability of resources, or there were many traumatic experiences one after the other, this is what we call instability. And this is how our life patterns become unstable, and which causes a lot of anxiety. The next that I'm coming to is personality. So we have seen that there is a concept called anxiety prone personality. So anxiety prone individuals are the ones who might have it in their biology, who have gathered it from their parenting style and from the environment. They are generally stressing, and they have either developed anxiety, or they will develop it later on. So this is something that has a lot of research basis, and personality affects a lot when it comes to mental health and anxiety. Childhood trauma. If the child was if an individual in their childhood, they have gone through traumatic experiences, or they have been through a lot of negative experiences from which they thought they coped with, but they were unable to, that is when we term it as anxiety, because that past trauma is somewhere down the line holding on to our mental health, and it is causing a lot of anxiety from which we are trying to recover in our day to day lives, but we might not be fully aware of it. Then we have academics. A lot of people might disagree, but academics tend to cause a lot of stress and anxiety. Exam anxiety is a term that you might be knowing, and there's something called performance anxiety. So a lot of us have that. We try to perform very well, and we are anxious about performing very well. Then we have the last point, that is psychological disorder. So if you are already having a psychological disorder, there are chances that you might have anxiety attached with it along. So if you know someone who has a psychological disorder, like there's depression, maybe there's some other kind of disorder, the chances is the chances are that the anxiety will come along with it. Psychological disorders, they somewhere down the line stem a lot from anxiety. So anxiety is something that is carried along with the psychological disorders. Impact of stress and anxiety on psychological health. We all tend to notice that if we are anxious, if you have observed that you have anxiety, you might observe that you have memory problems. Like there were times in your life that you have no memory of, or you have faint memory of, and you have recalling problems, and there's a lot of information that you have missed. This might happen in the case of anxiety, that you are developing memory problems. You are developing recalling those memories. When you are facing problems of memory storage and memory recalling, you have faint memories, or you don't have memories at all. So the information never got stored, or it did not get retrieved well. So we see that anxiety causes a lot of sleep problems. Since anxiety is more about arousal of our body and our mind, so our mind tends to overwork on that. Our mind tends to overthink, as well as our body is in a state of arousal in most of the anxiety times, and it is in a state of fight or flight mode. So this is when we find that when our body is so much activated that we are unable to relax our mind and body, and we are unable to sleep. And that is where sleep problems develop. Then we have intense mood swings. It is very common to see that people with anxiety, they tend to have extreme mood swings. At one point they're feeling so sad, and they're feeling hopeless, and they're feeling like they cannot do anything, they're doubting themselves, and they're feeling very negative about themselves and everyone around them, and about the world as well. And at one point they feel like, okay, I have got the confidence, I can do anything in the world, I have that potential. And our moods tend to, it's like a pendulum that swings around. This is what we call mood swings. We feel a lot of intense mood swings, and this is something that comes commonly with anxiety. Aggressive and violent mindset. So when it comes to anxiety, when we have talked about overthinking, overgeneralizing patterns, thinking about the things that might be possible, thinking about the things that are not even real, they don't have reality basis. My mind is thinking about them, and we are not even aware these might not be on real basis. This might not be the exact reality. Rather, it is something that my mind is creating. So this tends to make us very aggressive, because for example, if there is a person in front of me, and like I just gave the example of criticism, the person criticized me, and maybe the person criticized me for my growth, and for my betterment, but I took it otherwise, because my mind started thinking in a very negative way. My thoughts are uncontrollable, and I started the process of overthinking. So now it is when I will start to, the whole cycle that we just discussed, behavior pattern. Then there's going to be arousal, body, fight or flight mode. I'm going to want to be aggressive, I'm going to be angry. That is when we act. Then when our emotions combine with our thoughts, this is when we tend to become aggressive, and also engage in negative behaviors and harmful behaviors. Anxiety hampers self-confidence, concept, and self-esteem. So this is commonly seen with people with anxiety, that their self-concept is a little hampered. As in, they are confident, they may look confident, but somewhere down the line there are experiences and there are uncomfortable emotions trapped inside of them. And these emotions are building up on like day-to-day basis, and they are trapped inside of them, and they don't know how to let them out. And this directly impacts our self concept as well as our self esteem. And the last point is that it may lead to other psychological problems. So, like I've said, a lot of psychological disorders and a lot of psychological problems, they stem from anxiety. So if a person is already having a problem of chronic anxiety or maybe an anxiety disorder, there are chances that the person might develop other psychological disorders later in their life. This is how important it is to control the chronic and extreme intense anxiety. Impact of stress and anxiety on physical health. We have just discussed about impact of stress and anxiety on mental health. Now we're going to discuss its impact on physical health. It decreases our muscle strength. So you can easily see that people with the anxiety, they tend to have, weak muscles. They don't have a good muscle strength, because that is because they might be working out, they might not be working out, but it is hard to gain strength. That is because our anxiety, it directly impacts our immunity as well as our physical functioning, our body, our biological clock, our metabolism, our psychological clock, everything, it directly impacts it. So that is where our anxiety, which is a more of a mental or psychological term, is attacking our body as well. There is decrease in energy. So if you have seen, there are days, especially in the pandemic, if I talk about, we have noticed that in the pandemic we don't feel like doing anything, and we feel so exhausted even when we have not done a lot of tasks, we have not done a lot of things. Even then we are feeling very exhausted, causes a lot of fatigue and loss of energy. This is because we are in a constant state of anxiety due to the pandemic. The stress and anxiety the pandemic is causing, it is leading to a lot of fatigue and loss of energy. There are going to be weight disturbances with people with anxiety, and people with anxiety, they tend to easily catch they tend to easily catch flus, and they are very vulnerable. The immunity system is very vulnerable, and they easily become ill and sick. So if you see someone who is easily getting flus, and they are easily getting sick again and again, so this is a symptom of anxiety, a prominent one. Also, if you may notice that whenever, if this happened with you, the case of anxiety I'm talking about, people tend to have a bad, they tend to have a bad stomach. They tend to get a stomach upset, basically around their exam time. This is because the exams cause a lot of anxiety and nervousness within individuals, and the body is reacting to that anxiety. Now, coming to the next slide, stress hormones. In the registration forms, we had a few questions about stress hormones. People wanted to learn about what are stress hormones and how they get regulated. So I'm going to give you a little brief about that. There are three types of hormones that I'm going to be talking about when it comes to stress and anxiety. So there's cortisol, there's adrenaline, and there's norepinephrine. So cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine are three stress hormones, and I'll tell you how they work. When our mind has perceived a threat, our mind thinks that there is a threat, even if there is not, then it impacts our body, and our body responds it in a way of arousal. Our body gets aroused, and that is when our body, our biology, our brain, they release hormones. These are the stress hormones that are released so that we are in a stage of fight or flight mode. When we are in a fight or flight mode, we are actually trying to deal with the situation. We're actually trying to use our coping techniques and coping abilities. So if you have seen, if you are becoming very much angry these days, that is your fight or flight response that is being activated every now and then. And this is basically because of anxiety. We had questions yesterday related to aggression, and I would like to state it at this very point that aggression stems out of anxiety as well. The larger, the intense the anxiety is, the intense emotion it is going to cause. Aggression and anti behavior, if a person is showing, there is a possibility that their anxiety is getting out of control. Now, when these hormones are released in our system, that is when we prepare ourselves for the fight or flight mode. We want to, we want to deal with the situation, we want to run away from it. This is what the hormones do to us. They prepare our body so that we can, fight with whatever's happening. So, in case you are in a jungle, okay, let's take an example. You are in a jungle and you see a lion over there. Okay, now what is your reaction to that? Your reaction is basically that you will try to run away from it. And if you see that lion running behind you, your mind will start thinking of new techniques. Either, playing dead can be an option. You want to either deal with it or you want to run away from it. That is like an absolute example of fight or flight mode. This is how our body reacts to a stressor. Now the outcomes of these stress hormones is that uh, when these hormones are regularly being released in our system, and not only when it is required, but it is being released every now and then, it becomes a habit of our mind and our brain, our body and our brain to release them even when there are no threats or minimal threats. So for example, the lion example that I just gave you now, for example, take this example that there's a person who is thinking about not so comfortable thoughts about future possibilities and negative ones. Now the body is going to respond in the same manner as it was responding when there was a lion chasing that person. Now the body does not require that amount of arousal, but the body is going to have it because the body has become habitual to anxiety, and the body is becoming habitual to releasing those stress hormones, those anxiety hormones, the negative hormones. And that is when we are in a day to day life, we are ready to show fight and flight mode. We are becoming aggressive and we are wanting to just cope with it, or we are uh, creating violence. So, imbalanced hormones is one more aspect that is covered. If our hormonal system is not very balanced, then it tends to release hormones in a very imbalanced way on the times when we don't need it. So, if the negative hormones are released on the times when we don't need it, then the positive hormones are also released on the times we don't need it, and that causes so much of imbalance in our day-to-day life that it causes even more anxiety. So, see, this is another cycle of anxiety that is going on. So, how do we break this cycle? We have talked enough about the negative aspects of anxiety, how it dwells on us, and how it takes different forms on our mind, on our body, on our biology, on our behaviors, and on our thoughts. But how do we cope with it? How do we cope with it effectively? So we are going to be talking about breaking the cycle of anxiety. So the first point that here, if people are not able to, see the screen properly, I'm going to read it out. So that's not going to be a problem for you. The first box in the green is a trigger box. So the trigger is when we perceive a threat, even if it's in a real sense or not, then it leads to emotions that are feeling attacked or threatened. So how do we control our triggers? How do we control our anxiety when it's starting to trigger? So for example, I'm here and I just encounter a situation where I'm having a lot of anxiety. Maybe my brother just said something that I didn't like a lot. Okay, and that is something that has triggered me, and I'm starting to feel that the toll of emotions on me. And now I'm starting to feel so many negative emotions about my brother. He has been doing that, he does that, and he never wants me to stay happy, and he has always been in my way, all of these emotions. And I'm starting to hate my brother all of a sudden at this very point. This is something that has started, the cycle has started. So at the very first point, when the trigger is there, if my brother has said something that is not very comfortable to me and a bit negative, how am I going to deal with it? I'm going to use a rational approach. So if the anxiety or the negative emotions are not very intense, I can try to think rationally about it. So if my brother has just criticized me for something, has said something that I don't like, I can start thinking about, okay, if my brother is saying that to me, maybe my brother wants the best for me. Maybe my brother is saying that because he wants me to improve. And okay, if his tone was not so good, it's okay, but that his statement is going to improve me and it's going to help me. That is when we are starting to think about the whole scenario in a very rational way. Second thing that we can do when the triggers have started is mindfulness. So before the thoughts lead to emotions, before we start to experience emotions, or ahead of that, when we get into the cycle of on the stage of arousal, we can stop our mind by just focusing on the present before all of the thoughts come up, like all the negative thoughts come up, like he has been doing this and I don't want him in my life and I just want to get away, I will take a different room, I will not talk to him, and things like that. Before the thoughts are starting to develop, we can use mindfulness and focus on the present moment. What is happening in here? He just said something and he has left. What we can do now? What is here in what is here in this very present moment? What can I do about it now? What do I need to focus on? What was I doing and what are my surroundings like? So that is when we use the technique of mindfulness. Few of these techniques we have covered in the last session, but I'm going to be talking about them in detail. Also, I'm going to be introducing new techniques so that all people who did not attend yesterday's session, they can be benefited from today's session as well. So the third thing that we do is deep breathing, and that is a way of bringing our focus to the present moment and on our breath. When we focus on our breath, we come back to the present moment. Our breath is the only thing that can, take us back to the present moment again and again. Our thoughts are, they are the component that they tend to take us away from the present moment, away from the reality. And breath and mindfulness is something that can bring our focus back to the present moment. So just observe your breath and take deep breaths. Now, while the cycle is going on, if you're not able to, implement these techniques well, and if you see that, okay, maybe the stage has crossed, and now I'm starting to think that I cannot use these. And there are other techniques at different stages. We have arousal, our body has aroused, and also we are in the middle of fight and flight mode. That is where we can use stop technique. When we know that, okay, now the things are going to get more aggressive, things are going to get more intense, I might want to react to that. I'm already starting to have those thoughts and those negative emotions, and I might want to stop now. That is where you use the stop technique. Stop technique has been explained yesterday, but I'm going to do it again today. What we do is that our thoughts, which are taking us in a completely different direction, a negative one, we are going to stop ourselves. We are going to stop those thoughts by either saying it in our mind or saying it out aloud. So I will close my eyes and I will say, stop, stop. Doesn't matter how many times you need to, repeat it, but the motive is that your mind stops. And when your mind stops, then then you go back to the first level, and then you start using those techniques like rational approach towards thinking, mindfulness, and deep breathing. That is what we do to, get back to that stage where we can help ourselves. Second thing, we are going to use grounding technique. Like I've told before, grounding technique means 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Five things that I can see around me. Okay, this is bringing our focus back to the present moment. So there, what are the five things that I can see around me? There's a door over here, there's a wall over here, there's a fridge, there's an AC, there's a table. So these are the five things that I'm going to focus on. I'm actually activating my sense organs. So my eyes have been activated. Four things that I can hear. I can hear the fan. I can hear someone talking on the road. I can hear a horn. I can hear a cycle pass by, and maybe I can hear a car pass by. These are the four things that I can hear. Three things that I can feel. So I can feel. I can touch this table. I can, touch my phone. I can touch the door. Three things that I can touch, two things that I can smell. So I can go towards my garden and smell a flower, or I can use my perfume, or anything that has a good smell. I can use my sense organ nose to engage into that. And one thing that I can taste. Now, the last sense organ that's left is taste, that is my tongue. So I can, go to the fridge. I can eat something, have a chocolate maybe, and I will focus on what it tastes like. I'm going to take bite by bite, and I'm going to, feel. I'm going to be mindful about my eating, and I'm going to observe on every sensation that is happening while I'm, tasting that chocolate. And this is how we get back to the present moment, away from our thoughts. This is called grounding technique. And what we can do is, for example, if we are in a state of fight with someone, we can, instead of fighting back constantly and making things worse, we can divert our attention. We can go away from that fight, maybe into the nature, even to park. Maybe if that's not possible, we can go in our balcony. Okay, we can go on our terrace, and we can just have some time away from the person we are angry with. And when we are away from them, then we can use these techniques back, like rational thinking, because our mind will try to, think about it. Our body is aroused. Either we calm them down or we take them into a positive direction. Now, one thing that I want to tell you about anxiety is that anxiety tries to, bring heat in our body. It tries to activate all our senses, all our organs, and it tends to, have a bad impact on our body as well. So, how can we calm it down? Whenever you're feeling that the anxiety has risen a lot, and I'm going to want to, try to take a break. If I just fought with someone and I want to take a break, take a cold shower. When the cold water is poured on you, that is where your body will automatically relax and calm down. Cold showers are like a miracle when it comes to treating anxiety. There's something called hydrotherapy, and you can look up on the internet, but it works wonder. Now you can use nature as a tool, because in the natural environment we can use our sense organs and we can engage in the natural activities as well. Deep breathing again, and one technique that you might have not heard about in your past life is, wetting a cloth and putting it on your face. So we are basically trying to relax our body and relax our mind. Our body is very much aroused and we need to relax it. That is where we take a handkerchief and we, wet it with cold water and we put it on our face, and automatically we will calm down. This is something. And if in one go you are not being able to calm yourself down, you can take like 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds of that wet handkerchief and focus on your breath during that time. And if you are thinking that the whole cycle has crossed and I'm not able to, control myself, that is because you haven't been practicing the methods well. You need more of practice towards the methods, and as you keep practicing, you will, you will get habitual towards the practices, as well as you will understand them better and you will be able to implement them better. Moving along the next slide is lifestyle modification. So, in lifestyle modification, what we do is, see, I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you a point over here, that if you want to know how to deal with anxiety and stress and, negative emotions, there are like hundreds of techniques that I can tell you, and you will be, after going, after getting back into your work, when you think about it, you will realize that you've got super confused and you don't know what to do and how to do it. So this is why I'm focusing on very limited techniques and very effective techniques, so that when you find yourself in some sort of problem, you can implement them well. And you can think about these 5, 6 techniques, and these are going to work wonders for you. So along with, helping ourselves in the time of when we need help, when we are anxious, we implement these techniques. On the other hand, we need to calm our body on a day-to-day basis. Like I just said, that our body becomes habitual of getting aroused every now and then on everything. If a person is even smiling at me or even laughing at me, that is where I don't need the anxiety, right? The anxiety does not need to be involved, but I am getting anxious. I am starting to show symptoms of anxiety. That is because my hormones have been trained in a way that they release frequently the stress hormones, and this is where my body is trained in a way that every now and then it is becoming very aroused, and so is my mind taking everything in a very negative direction. This can be done, like chronic anxiety can be treated if we focus on our lifestyle modification, if we focus on our daily routines. So the first thing is setting a routine. A lot of us face a problem with when it comes to routine. We are not very routine and disciplined people, and we tend to find problems. We make timetables, we create them, but and even if we stick it on our walls and we look at it, it's very hard to follow them. And I completely understand that. We are, most of us, we are not really timetable people who can stick to that and work well with that, and it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. If you are that person, it's great, and if you are not, even then it's okay. Just stick to little things, and the timings that you need to stick to are only for eating and sleeping. Okay, rest other things I'm going to tell you how to manage them. So for fixed eating and fixed sleep cycle, this is called circadian rhythm. I introduced the concept yesterday in the session about circadian rhythm. This is our biological clock. So, giving an example of that, if I wake up every day at 11 a.m., if I'm waking up every day at 11 a.m., that is where my body is trained in a way that I would wake up every day at 11 a.m. only. All of a sudden, I won't be able, if I put my, I set my alarm on 6 o'clock in the morning, it will be very hard for me to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning as my body has been trained to wake up at 11 o'clock so far. So this is an example of circadian rhythm that our body works the way we train it. So if you train your body to wake up at 6 a.m., so if you see your grandparents, if you see your parents, they wake up very early, right? 5, 6 a.m. And we tend to think that how are these people able to do that? Like we wake up at 11 a.m. and how are these people able to, wake up at 6 a.m.? This is how they have trained their bodies all along this time, and this is how their minds are trained to wake up at fixed time, and they have fixed sleeping time, they have fixed waking up time, and they have fixed eating time as well. So if we implement these three things, just fixed waking up time, fixed sleeping time, as well as taking our three meals on proper time, that is where most of our anxiety will reduce, because our system, our biological functioning will become more balanced. Now, the hormones are going to be released in a very balanced way. The circadian rhythm, the biological clock, is going to regulate in a balanced way. And this is what we have to create with our body and our mind. We need to create a balance with it. Now, incorporate deep breathing in your schedule for 10 minutes each day. If you do that, if you do that for like a very long time, if you practice this every day, within a month, you will see that a lot of your anxiety is reduced. A lot you will see a lot of improvement just by taking deep breaths for 10 minutes every day. Plan a worry time. So all the people who have not been introduced to the concept of worry time, worry time is basically fixing a time and a schedule in which I'm going to worry. So, for example, I've taken a time assumed as 5 p.m. 5 p.m. is my personal worry time. From 5 p.m. to 5:15 p.m., I am going to only worry and not do anything else. If I want to write down my worries, I'll do that. If I want to, speak about my worries, I'll do that. But thinking about those worries is only going to happen in that time frame and not any. It's not going to go off the time. So the trick is that when you wake up in the morning and during the day, when you are, when you are going on with your daily activities and routines, whenever you're getting that worry, that anxiety, that stress, you need to let it go, because you know that you have a worry time and you can only worry about that in your worry time. And the rest of your activities throughout the day, you have to manage them well and without worrying. So this is something that will come out of practice, and if you implement it well, it comes out beautifully. You train your body and your mind. So far, our anxiety has been controlling our mind and body and using it against ourselves, right? Now we are going to use our body and mind and use it against the anxiety. So we are using the same tools that our anxiety is taking against us. We are taking the same tools and we are going against our anxiety. This is the training procedure. Now, physical exercise is very important because it leads to release of positive hormones or happy hormones. These hormones, if there have been constant release of negative hormones, there's a lot of problems that come up, like the positive hormones are not frequently released, and that is where the balance is not being found. So we create that balance by exercising. Exercising, it improves our blood circulation as well, and it leads to release of positive hormones. So that is going to balance our day-to-day life and our day-to-day emotions, emotional health, mental health, physical health. Then we have mindfulness approach. We have talked about it. We have progressive muscle relaxation. So progressive muscle relaxation is a technique. You can find the videos on YouTube very easily. It is basically there's going to be a voice and it's going to train you. You have to lie down on the bed. You can do it every night before you sleep. It's like it will take like 10-15 minutes depending on what video you find, and it's going to ask you to do certain amount of things. So when you do that, when you follow that recording, um, you will realize that your body is calming down. Step by step your body is calming down, and it helps relieve uh, the chronic anxiety a lot. Then we have guided imagery. So all of the people who have not heard about guided imagery, guided imagery basically is this also you can find on YouTube. You just need to type guided imagery over there, put on your earphones. They are going to ask you, the person on the video is going to ask you to imagine a scenario, a very beautiful, happy, positive scenario that is going to lead to releasing of a lot of positive hormones. And yesterday I had a question about sleep anxiety. So if the person is here, or if there are other people who want to know about sleep anxiety and how to get relief from that, people are basically very they are very afraid to fall asleep, or they don't want to go to sleep. They feel very anxious while going to sleep. That is because they have somewhere down the line they have a negative perception or a negative experience about sleeping, or maybe the anxiety is related to something else. But how do we calm our body and our mind enough to be sleeping? Also, people who have sleep problems and insomnia, hypersomnia, any type of problem that you have, this is going to work well with sleep problems. You just have to sit down before you go to bed. You have to sit down. You have to close your eyes and you have to imagine your sleep. You have to imagine it in a very positive way. Like, for example, I'm closing my eyes and I'm imagining that I'm having a beautiful sleep. I'm not waking up in between. I'm having a beautiful dream. My body is so relaxed while I'm sleeping, and I'm not anxious. I'm calmed down and I'm having like a sound sleep. My sleep is not disturbed by the environmental factors or anything. When you imagine it, that is when you would want it, and when you train your mind that you want it, that is where your mind will give you that. So you do that for like 10-15 minutes every night before going to sleep. You imagine a good sleep whenever you can't go to bed, and that is where eventually automatically you will find yourself to be in a very happy and beautiful sleep. Then we have thought recording, or what we call journal. So problem with anxiety is that we have a lot of irrational thoughts that don't have reality basis. We don't know, we think about things that we think are true, but we are not sure if they are true or not, if they have reality basis or not, even if they're facts or not. If I'm thinking about a person, I have this negative perception. I'm not aware that I am having that bias towards that person. I'm having that bias and I'm not looking at that person rationally. So that is where we record our thoughts. We maintain a journal and we try to record everything and we try to question it with factual basis. Like, what are the facts involved in my these negative thought procedures? And the last has been covered as well, which is rational thinking, factual thinking. And that's all for today. I'm going to be taking up questions now. Kirti, can you please do that?
Hi, Garima. Yes, definitely. I think a lot of doubts and questions were already cleared by, listening to you and this informative PPT that you presented to all of us. And let's start with the questions that we have. Okay, so while I think you've addressed that question already. Yeah, so some people want to know the difference between real and perceived triggers. What is the difference between the two?
Okay. So the real trigger is something that is actually there, present in the environment. There is reality, there's the reality basis that the trigger is present. So for example, when I took the example of a lion, so the lion was actually present there. This was a trigger that was actually present in the environment. Perceived threat is something that our mind might be creating. So for example, the example that I took before, if my brother has criticized me, I'm perceiving it as a threat to my integrity, to my self concept. If my brother just, if he comes up right now and tells me that you did not do well in this session, why were you doing this, you should not do this, this is something that I perceive it as a threat. While my brother is not, threatening me, my brother is not trying to go against me, he's trying to help me. But my perception towards him is negative, and this is why I'm perceiving it as a threat, while it is not a threat. Okay. In anxiety, our irrational thoughts, they become, they have this tendency to provide us with irrational, triggers that might not be there, that our mind is creating. So we need to actually question it, that is this for real? Is this threat for real? Or my mind is creating this threat? So that is where you will be able to differentiate between real or perceived threat.
Yes. I hope that answers your question. The next question is overthinking same as anxiety, or is it a kind of anxiety?
See, overthinking is different from anxiety, but we can say that overthinking happens in anxiety. So, overthinking comes along with anxiety. So, if you are a person who is like an overthinker, like most of us are, but if that is, causing you a lot of tension, stress, and that is hampering your lifestyle, your health, and your routine, your mind, your confidence, and everything, we can say that this is anxiety. Overthinking may not always be anxiety, but anxiety in most of the cases it does cause overthinking. So you need to, back yourself out from the overthinking scenario and use rational thinking as a tool. If possible, try to stop the thoughts with stop technique and mindfulness, and the anxiety has a tendency to take our emotions and our thoughts to an extreme negative edge, to an extreme negative level, and take us away from the reality. What we are doing with all these techniques, we are trying to bring them back to reality, the rational approach, something that is reality.
So we have a little biological question here that says, how do we regulate our nervous system, and what is the role of vagus nerve and how important is it?
All right, so our body, how do we regulate our biology, right? That's the question.
Our nervous system.
Our nervous system. So our nervous system, what happens is that with anxiety, like I've said before, our nervous system tends to produce fight or flight mode very often. So even if there's a threat, or even if there's not a threat, our nervous system will try to react to that. Our central nervous system does a lot of that. Vagus, on the other hand, is a nerve that is connecting, is a cranial nerve that is connecting our nervous system to our brain. So how do we regulate that? These techniques are going to be very helpful with that. By we have two tools in our hands. We either focus on our thoughts, or we focus on our behaviors, because both of these components are getting affected by anxiety. So we use both of them. Okay, we calm down our mind, and that is how eventually our body will calm down. Or either we calm down our body and eventually our mind will calm down. We can take one process, and we can go about right about it. So calming our mind can come with calming our body, and calming our body can come with calming the mind. So use
Great.
these methods, especially the circadian rhythm that I've said. Train your body in the way that you want your body to be trained, or you want your body to work. This is how we provide the training to our mind and body.
Yes. And the next question is that what is the right parenting style?
What is the right parenting style? So I would say that a very supportive one. So I'm going to tell you that there are like a lot of parenting styles, out of which authoritarian one is the most strict one. So this is where the child basically gets no freedom of their own to understand things, to explore things, to question things, or to make their own decisions. Because whatever is told by the parents, they have to do that only. This is very strict approach towards parenting. And when the children, they are not able to explore the world themselves, that is what lead to a lot of psychological disorders in the future. So to prevent that, you can use a very supportive and a training, a parenting training, that you might want to involve your child into exploring things. If they have questions, answer them in a way that is very supportive and not aggressive. Don't try to confront your child every now and then. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Make sure that you are supportive towards the child. The child does not have senses of their own, they do not have their own decision making power, they don't have concrete thoughts, and they don't have that intellect to be doing everything right. So understand that they can do everything wrong, they can go wrong, and it's your job to, not make them go on the correct path every time, but to make them understand about what is wrong and what is right, because this thing is going to take them a long way throughout life. You are not going to be there with the child forever to tell them to do this and not to this. The child needs to understand and learn this on their own, that what is to be done and what is not to be done. This decision making power, giving them freedom to, play, to make their own little decisions. If they want to dress up themselves in a way that they want to, let them do that. Let them have that little bit of freedom that they need to grow.
Yes, right. Like somebody in the comment section also said that authoritative parenting is the best style. So we completely agree to that. And the next question is that after experiencing a lot of anxiety daily, people generally don't feel safe in their body. And when trying to sleep or attempting mindfulness, all the negative thoughts, emotions come flooding in. So what can be done there?
So, okay, if you attended the session yesterday, we talked about the unconscious mind. Okay. So, if these emotions, these thoughts, and these very uncomfortable feelings are coming up while you are practicing mindfulness, let them come up. They are coming up from your unconscious level to your conscious level. You are becoming aware of those problems. You will be able to help them. You will be able to deal with them effectively. So, if they're coming up, let them come up, let them pass through. When they have passed through, then you can start practicing mindfulness again. Okay. And in case you're in a situation where you need to drive yourself away from those thoughts and everything, then I have already provided with all these techniques. You need to train your mind to focus on the present moment. No one can do that for you. You have to train it eventually, and with daily practice. So try to focus, and if your thoughts are running, in a direction which is very uncontrollable and you cannot control it, look for methods where you can vent it out very healthy and safe methods like writing, or maybe you want to have someone support. You can look for social support, and you can. And the best thing that I would like to talk about here is, if a person is having that rush, inside of them, and they don't know how to control it, they cannot focus on the present moment. They really want to talk about it. Talk to a trusted person and have their feedback. A third person is someone who was not involved over there, who does not know what is going alone in your mind or alone in that person's mind. They are evaluating the situation according to both of you, and that is a very reliable feedback. That is what is going to help you in the rational thinking approach. So try to have feedback.
Okay, I think we have the last question here. In case I've missed anyone's question, please feel safe to send them again. The last question over here in the chat box is how to pull out someone out of a trauma he's experiencing from, like, if someone is afraid of water.
Okay, so being afraid of water is basically phobia, and this is not something that I would advise you to do, and I would not advise you to take be in charge and help that person. Rather, suggest that person, advise that person to go for professional therapy. You know, when the professionals deal with it, they can deal it in their own manner. They can deal. This can be only, this can be helped with therapy, because if you try to use an approach with that person, you might go completely wrong, and that person might, end up having more of that trauma and more of that elevation in that phobia. It might turn into a very traumatic experience. So do not take charge of that. Do not even try to help that person when it comes to phobia. We are not well trained individuals who can do that, but psychologists, us, we are expert in this field, and we have been trained to do this, so we know how to do it step by step. So let the professionals deal with such cases.
So I think one more question that I missed was why some people fall asleep anytime, anywhere, even while working or sitting or talking, and while at time is unable to have sleep on time. What do you suggest for this? So basically, irregular sleep patterns.
All right, so the question says that they are falling asleep even in the situations when they are not supposed to fall asleep. The way I've taken it, there are two scenarios that I'm coming up with in my mind. Either this is a sleep disturbance that is causing them, they are not able to sleep at night, and while they have to work, they're feeling sleepy about it, and this is very normal. The second thing that is coming on my mind is narcolepsy. So what happens in narcolepsy is that it is a sleep disorder where a person, they can sleep anywhere anytime. They can, while having tea, they can sleep for like moments, for the seconds or minutes, and the tea has fallen on them and they're not aware of that. They are walking and they sleep in their walk. They're found, on the road. This is a sleep disorder. So if you're talking about the sleep disorder, it's called narcolepsy. Let the professionals handle it. And if you're talking about the first scenario where the person is not able to, complete their sleep at night, and in the morning they're not able to go about their daily routines, try maintaining a routine. Our body needs training. Our body needs, constant training. So if, for example, for a month I've been sleeping at 6 a.m. in the morning, and all of a sudden for 1 week I want to, change the pattern, and I want to sleep at 10 p.m. and I want to wake up at 6 a.m. That is going to be very hard for to train my body and my mind. This is going to take patience, and this is going to take a lot of effort from your side, but you have to train it in a way that you set a routine for eating, sleeping. You have to regulate that circadian rhythm in your way. So no matter what time you feel sleepy, you have to, get to your bed and you have to try to go to sleep by the time you want to. Okay, get away from phone, switch off lights, and even if you can't fall asleep for hours, you have to stay in the bed. You cannot do anything else. Try to train your mind and body in this way for weeks, and it's going to come out beautifully, I'm sure.
So with this, we come to the end of the questions, and thank you so much, Garima. Thank you so much, participants, for joining in. I think today also we had an amazing response. So many people joined in, so many people viewed the live. I hope all of you found it useful, and we have also kind of exceeded the time. It was supposed to be from 4 to 5. Thank you so much, Garima, for giving in extra time for the session, and for everybody who joined in. We do have 3 more sessions planned for all of you. Again, we will be streaming them on YouTube only so that more people can access. Today there were some technical difficulties from my end, with the slide, sharing screen and everything, because actually both of us are not very pro at this, but we tried our best to make it a comfortable experience. I'll make sure that tomorrow no such glitches and no such problems happen. Thank you for being supportive. Thank you, Garima, for your time once again. And see you
Thank you so much,
tomorrow
Kirti.
where we talk about relationships. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Kirti. What a beautiful platform and what a beautiful audience. They have been, very eager about it, and they have had questions, and they were actually listening eagerly and curiously, and that is like amazing. Thank you everyone for being there. I hope I see you tomorrow as well, because we will be covering interpersonal relationships in tomorrow's topic. So interpersonal relationship is not just limited to girlfriend, boyfriend, and marital relationships. Rather, we are going to try to cover all types of relationships that we will find ourselves in. So basically, exploring our personality, our trigger points, and understanding our behavioral pattern. Thank you, everyone. Let's join tomorrow, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.